Alrighty, everybody. So this is the new project for today. I actually got this one on a commission, so I'm going to be reselling this one on commission. But this is a DR walk behind line trimmer. It's the kind that takes the thicker line, and this one actually has a beaver blade on it. It's kind of more meant for cutting denser brush or small saplings and other things like that. Anyways, this one was running fine when we got it. It's been sitting for about a year, and it's started sputtering and cutting off. So my first assumption was that it has a bad carb or a carb that needs to be cleaned. I did take all that off already. I have not gotten a chance to clean the area up yet. I don't know if you guys can see that. So that is what we're doing today. I've kind of already started on doing some parts of the cleanup, but just in this general area, I have not cleaned anything up. Now, when I got into the carb, I did see inside the float had a little bit of residual. However, I do not believe that is my issue. I do not believe that's enough to gum up the jet or anything like that. It's possible the fuel might have been bad. But I think right here, I think this spring right here, which is my throttle control for the choke, I think this is bad. And it's just too loose on there. And if that was the case, I probably could have gotten out of it a lot cheaper just by replacing that spring or tightening it up. But we will see, because I figured I was already in here and I might as well just go ahead and do a carb clean while I was on this, or while I was in here. The filter, this is the old filter right here. It's still pretty good. It could be reused. It doesn't look like it's got any really bad debris in it or anything like that. You can kind of see that it still has a nice flex to it, not a whole lot of dirt. But I'm going to go ahead and replace it anyways with that new one over there. This is the float and seat. Don't want to lose anything out of that, so I've just kind of been keeping it propped up. And that seemed to be working alright when I got into the into the bowl. That seemed to be doing its job. So, and what I was noticing is that in the carb, it actually did have a good amount of fuel in there. The one thing I did notice when I pulled off the carb cover here was that a small portion of the gasket came off with it, which wasn't good, but it wasn't anything that was significant. So I don't think that would be my issue. I did notice when I took the spark plug out of this that it had a lot of gummy fuel on it. I can show you guys that in just a second here. As well, I will show you what I'm using. This project needed a 10mm and a 8mm ratchet, and if you're just kind of going with a gun, it might have a hard time to get in there because it's tighter. And the ratchet itself will need an extension to get in on some of the bolts. I clamped off my fuel line. I probably didn't do it the best. I used a pair of regular vice grips on it. I should have used needle nose. They are a little bit better, but you do have to be careful with needle nose, because if you have old line like this one, you can see some of the cracks in it. They will make indents on it, kind of damage it a little bit, so you gotta be careful with that. But right now this is working fine. And I am using a product called B-Laster, or Blaster, and it's a small engine tune-up. You can just spray it directly into the carb without the air filter being on there when the engine's running, and it'll clean it out. Or you can spray it for about 10 to 15 seconds and then attempt to start the engine, but don't actually start it. All the directions are on the bottle. So that's going to be my job today. It's just kind of getting this thing cleaned up. Right now I got some parts in the parts cleaner. I just have a little crummy parts cleaner over here in the shop, and I just put it in that, but it doesn't stay on very long, so I'm going to have to get a new one of those. Probably going to try to get a bigger one as I get more into these projects. But for right now, I have my jet and my bowl in here. And it does a well enough job. You can see that it is stirring the water in there, so I know that it is actually doing its job to clean it. And this is just a very tiny ultrasonic cleaner, so it's not going to do too much. But it is getting some stirring going on in there. Let me see if I can turn the light on so you guys can see that better. So you can see where the water is kind of ripply. So that tells you that it is working. And I put like just a drop of Dawn dish soap in here just for degreasing these parts. You don't want to do too much because some parts have the gaskets and it'll mess up the seals on them. So just a drop of that in there. And it seems to be doing well with the cleaning process. Here's my carb anyways. I'm pretty sure you guys are curious to see that. Turn the light on here for you. Carb seemed to be pretty clean. What I was noticing is that this portion right here was not opening, or it was staying on full open choke. It was not closing off. Even when it was put on regular run, this was just not moving with the cable. And what I did notice is that spring was very, very flexible, was not wanting to tighten up, and I think that's my issue, is it's not wanting to pull that closed when it's in the run position. And so it causes the machine to shut down after like a minute of running. And obviously you can see it's pretty gunky on the top, but the inside portion I put the bead laster in. It should clean it up in a couple minutes here. This is also going to go through the ultrasonic cleaner. See if I can get it a little cleaner than it already is. My only concern is it has a significant layer of debris on the outside, and I do not want that getting in on the inside. So hopefully there's no issue there. The gasket for this just looks like that. It's on that side there. And this one, I didn't want to peel it off because it still looked like it was fairly okay. And I didn't want it ripping or anything like that. Okay, so that's the issue with my parts cleaner. As you guys can hear, it cuts itself off after about a minute or so. But we are going to get that, get this stuff cleaned up. I'll probably have to just sit in here and keep pressing the button on it because it is having some issues, as you can see. It's got quite a bit of damage on it. But hey, it works. It's what I got. I'm going to go drain the fuel tank out real quick on that, get rid of that old gummy, nasty fuel that's in there, and see if I can do a quick cleanup. While I'm doing that, I'm going to take the jet and float out of here and let them kind of get some time to dry out, and I'm going to put this carb in here and see if I can get that to work while I'm cleaning out the fuel tank. And if I do this all right, by the time I'm done with this video, we should have a running line trimmer, DR line trimmer. And the reason I didn't want to just say no on doing the work is because number one, I'm making commission on it. It's not actually my trimmer. And number two, it's a DR trimmer. It's definitely worth putting the time into it to get it fixed, and if I can't do it, I'll end up taking it into a parts guy. But there you have it. Look at that, nice and pretty and shiny. Okay, so I'm gonna get this stuff taken out of here real quick and let it dry off. Put the next part in that needs to be washed and get that going. And I'm gonna go clean the fuel line out and get the old fuel out of there and see what I can do to get all that gummy buildup out of there. This was the spark plug, by the way. I did not happen to get a chance to buy another one, so I just kind of, sorry about the blur. I'm just going to try to kind of clean this one up, and if you ever get a chance to, it's always best to buy a new one. I just took a little bit of sandpaper to this one. It shouldn't be an issue. It still gets it started, so I know it works, but it's pretty old. As you can see, it's got rust buildup and other things, so spark plug may actually be an issue there. It's just got a lot of gummy buildup on it. Let's see if I can focus it in so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Got a lot of carbon buildup on there. The flip side's got some rust on it. Come on. There we go. Rusting, corrosion, and things like that. So, it's just a little champion. Spark plug, kind of standard. But, worst case scenario, I may have to replace that. But I'm going to try to clean it up and see what I can do with it for now. Alrighty, I'm going to be, doing the reassembly process for you guys. I'm going to be setting you on a tripod to do the reassembly so you can see how it all goes back together, so that way you can do the reverse and just kind of watch it and see how to take it all apart. So bear with me, it's going to be just a few minutes here. Alright everybody, just want to do an update. This definitely is a little bit of a dirty fuel here. You can see that color there. It's kind of like a pukey looking color there, and I think that's possible the fuel that we had in the can that was in this may have had some form of an oil mixture in it or something, but I use 89 in all my stuff, and I think this was an 87 regular that somebody may have put in here. And 89 usually has like a bluish, almost a bluish greenish hue to it. This is just kind of pukey color. It's like a tingy yellow. And this is what the whole thing is full of right now. So it's got a little bit of a jelly texture to it, but not too much. So what I'm going to do is put this in this old gas can that I have here and get that sealed off till I can get a place to properly dispose of it and get the rest of the fuel out of these lines here. But I wanted to give you guys an update on that. If you're using 89 fuel, it should not look like that. It should not be that color. So you don't have to run 89 through all of these machines, but I honestly see it's a little bit better. It does burn a little hotter, but it also allows it to start a little easier. Alright everybody, I just kind of got you guys positioned here so you'll be able to hear me and see a little bit of what I'm doing, but you won't be able to see everything, just because I don't want to mess up my position that I get over here with the camera. I'm going to keep it nice and still for you guys so it's not jumping like it normally does. Okay, so right here is your fuel jet. You can see, I don't know if you get how well you guys can see that. It might be a little bit blurry. There we go. So that's your fuel jet, and on the side of it, it's going to have tiny little pinholes. You should be able to see right through those. If there's any debris or anything like that blocking those, that's going to be one of your issues. You need to get that unclogged. And this is even smaller one right here on the top of it. And the way that you can tell if that's clogged, a quick, easy way, is if you have a like compressed air or anything like that, you can blow that in there. The best way to do it for listening to it is just to clean it out as much as you can, get the fuel out of it, obviously, and just kind of blow through this hole here. You'll hear it come through, so it should sound something like this. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but that is a clean fuel jet. So we're going to reassemble this back to the carb. Your jet's going to go just right up into the bottom of the float here. And then that's going to screw into the bottom of the carb. So we're going to do that real quick. The area it's going to screw into is right there. Be sure to put your float and needle seat back on before you put this back on. So your needle seat, the needle is going to sit right here in that little area on the carb. Not sure how well you guys can see that. Sorry, it's very sunny out here, so it's kind of blurring the camera. But your needle is going to sit right there. And your pin is actually going to go in right here on the plastic float. So once if it's working properly, the needle is going to go right down in there and plug that up. Or release it depending on what you need. Just be very, very careful on this part because these parts are very small. So if you lose them, you'll probably end up having to replace a whole float. And that can be a pain if you don't have the time to wait to do it. So this is kind of its function. Your pin goes right in there where my fingertip is at, and that's just going to allow it to go up and down as the fuel's coming through, and it's going to push against that needle there. You can see the back end of that needle just right there where my fingertip's at, and it sits under that plastic. As this goes up and down, it's going to want to push against that needle. Really, I have this upside down, so it would really sit like this. And then your float is going to come down in the bowl like that. And as the bowl fills up with fuel, it's going to push it back closed again. So that's why they call it a float. So when the bowl is on this, the bowl is going to get a little bit of fuel in it. It's going to push that needle back up in the closed position until it needs more fuel going through this carb. Usually, if you're trying to dry these things out, these carbs out after you're done cleaning them with the ultrasonic cleaner, you'll want to use a portion or some version of compressed air just to get into all those tiny holes, especially if you have a cleaner like a Dawn dish soap or something that you're using. It's just going to get all that stuff out of the pores and allow it to have a smoother function. but this is what it should look like when it's reassembled. You're going to need a 1/2 inch or a 13 in your ratchet set to get that nut off of the bowl. And this is also your jet, so try not to strip that. So we're going to put this back together real quick here, and I'm going to show you guys a step-by-step process on how to do that. You're putting this float back on, you want to make sure it's good and tight on there. But don't like man heave tighten it on there. You just want to get it to where it's kind of like just a little bit tight on there, but not where you're doing that, because you don't want to strip it. You just want it enough on there where it's going to seal that gasket. Alrighty, we're going to put our fuel line back on here. Well, actually what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put the throttle control back on. See if you guys can see that without my fingers being in the way. So this right here, this is going to go right into the little top hole up here. Now there's 2 top holes up here, but you want to go into the bigger one. That little one is just to allow it to spin. See if we can do this. We do have some other wiring in the way down here, so it's a little bit tricky on these older models to do this without bumping into other things, but I think we can get it. Alrighty, there we are. And just what holds these on is going to be some, I believe these are a 10, if I remember correctly. These are a 10. It's going to hold that carb on there. 10 millimeter in your ratchet set there. So after you get that jet on and off, you won't need your 13 or your 1/2 inch drive anymore, so you can put that back. At least for this model, you won't need it. What I'm actually going to do is try to put these on by finger first. Just get it started so you don't have to hold that carburetor in there with 2 hands where you're trying to get the nuts and bolts and everything back on there. And yes, I am working outside today. I could work in the shop, but it's too nice of a day to do that. So I decided to work in the sunlight today. Here in Washington, you don't really get a whole lot of good days where you're just nice portion of sunlight and a good breeze outside. Usually it's either blazing hot or dumping rain, so it's nice to have something that's kind of in between that. Alrighty, you just kind of want to snug it up, just like that. These ones you don't want to do super tight on them, you just want to go tight enough. Obviously, you don't want to be stripping any of the nuts or bolts when you're putting this stuff back together again. And this is why I was saying you will need an extension, because it's just for this particular trimmer, It's just slightly too small to get a gun in there. I have a 12-volt impact Milwaukee. It's just slightly too small of an area to get that in there, and that's why you want to have a little ratchet set like this, little mechanic set to get in there. And if you can, just try to go on both sides every now and again and snug it up. Don't want to snug up one of these bolts too much more than the other. You kind of want to keep it even on the tightness. At least that's what I do when I'm doing stuff like this. And that just allows it to seal properly. Like I said, you don't have to put a lot of torque into these things. You just want to get them enough that they're sealed. This was the problem I was mentioning before. See, right here, this should be moving. This should be opening and closing. Well, you can see this spring over in this area just wants to extend. It does not want to move that butterfly valve opened or closed. So this spring, I believe, is my issue, because this should be doing that. It should be allowing that to open and close. And as the carb's on, it should be pulling that, or it should be allowing that to fully open as it does when you turn that carb on. But then you go to pull that carb back, it should be pushing this back, and it's not. And the reason for that is because when carb's opened, it's allowing a full amount of fuel to go in there to get it started. And then when you when you turn that choke off, that choke should allow that full amount of fuel to go in there. I'm saying the wrong thing there, not carb. When you turn that choke off, it should be allowing that butterfly that's inside this carburetor to start to close off a little bit. Now this one, the issue is that the choke is not cutting down. It will open up all the way, but it will not pull it back to allow it to cut down in any way. So I think I got a bad spring here. It could be something else going on. This is my first time getting into this particular machine, and I just will end up figuring it out as I get all this put back together. Either way, I know this spring is going to need to be replaced, and it's possible I may be missing another spring on this, but we shall see. And we didn't, like, the original owner did not get this unit brand new. It was purchased used, so it's possible it came with some other problems going on with it. Alright, I won't waste you guys time too much, just kind of piddling around with that. Let's get this thing back together again. So this is your fuel line right here. You want to make sure your fuel is all the way drained out, clamped off when you're working with that. Also, when you're working with fuel lines, these guys are going to be your best friend for getting the clamps, because they have that nice little elbow on them. You can easily just squeeze the clamps back and forth as you need to, just like that. And you can get these fuel lines off easy with that particular pair of pliers. They have a nice little elbowed head on them that allows you to work with this stuff a lot easier. Where a pair of pliers is not going to be able to get in there, or at least it would, but it would be more of a pain. Kind of just want to move that clamp out of the way, grab it right there, and just work it nicely back on there again. Don't want to squeeze these things too hard because you don't want to puncture a hole in your line. And then you just very nicely, neatly work your clip back over. Sorry if you guys are having a hard time hearing me from all this wind. There we are. And I'm actually going to do a little bit of Belaster spray in here before I put an air filter back on it, so bear with me. Also on this side, you're going to see this little guy right here. There is a metal notch right here that's going to slip over, so be sure to make sure that you push that back up on there. It should slide up on there real nice and easy. Sometimes. There we go. And then you should have about 3 of these 8mm screws. Sorry, I'm struggling with my gun here, trying to get it on. Alright, we're just going to set that down for just a minute. There we go. We got 2 of those right there. Gun on this, I advise that you be very, very careful because you are working against the gasket.